Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Authoritas Tea Time SEO, where we encourage everyone to take a break at 4 p.m. to connect with others and learn something new. I'm SEO Joe Blogs, Growth Marketer at Authoritas, and I'm also joined here by Carrie Shepherd today.
Hi, guys.
So we have three great speakers talking to us today about how to build a community around your brand. We have Lewis from Lego. We have Anton. I'm sure you've all met him from SEMrush. And we have Sarah Marks as well. Sarah has been in our audience for many of the different for many of the different Authoritas Tea Time SEO sessions. We will have some Q&A at the end. Oh, sorry, Sarah, what was that?
Oh, I was just going to say big fan.
Yay! So we will have some questions at the end, so feel free to drop your questions in the chat, and we will answer as many as possible within the time. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Luis, who is going to introduce himself and what he's been doing with Lego. Over to you.
Thank you, Joe. Hi, everyone. My name is Luis Navarrete Gómez. I'm originally Spanish, and I'm the Global Head of Search Marketing for the Lego Group. So basically, most of my role consists on driving different initiatives that we run across the Lego Group, particularly digital marketing transformation. And there is a lot of activities that I get involved on in the community. So I've been with many of you in the Search Awards. I'm part of different advisory boards and fellow member of the Marketing Society in London. Just I've been asked to elaborate on a fun fact about me. Believe it or not, there was once upon a time that I had long hair, and I used to be the guitar player in a heavy metal band, but that was many years ago. So without further ado, let me give you my few tips in terms of how you can build communities around your brand. And I think that the overall idea, the takeaway of this session is that communities grow around brands that have a purpose. And I will elaborate in a little bit what do I mean on that, right? But basically, I think that there are 5 key principles that you need to follow when building and nurturing your communities around your brand. And we will go through each one of them, but it's basically about brand purpose, leverage your ecosystem, engage around passion points, being culturally relevant, and being brave. And I will explain what do I mean by that. But let me see if I can manage to get to the next slide. There we are. So firstly, find your brand purpose and define how you will engage with your community and how you can genuinely add value. Basically, what you need to think, and no matter what sector you work on, is why will people even bother to join a community around my brand? What can I do for others? What my brand is here for? So if your brand were to disappear tomorrow, will anyone miss it? And I brought you the example of Nike, where if you go to their website, you can see that their purpose is to unite the world through sport to create a healthy planet, active communities, and equal playing field for all. And you can see how powerful this statement is. If we go to the next slide, we can see how they are bringing this up to life with a lot of programs that they do around inspiring what they call the next generation of athletes. And I think that this is really meaningful for everyone who is on the sports kind of arena to really engage with brands like this. This really gives me a motive to be part of their community. And I think that Nike has really understood that they need to put their community first here, so you can really understand what they are about. Second step is just to map out your ecosystem and open up ways for your community to grow. What do I mean by that? Well, you need to think across all the touch points that you have with your communities, with your customers, with your partners, with fans, with whoever that is out there who might be at some point engaging with you as a community. The example that I brought here is Lonely Planet and how they interact with different communities across different stages of their journey. So basically, when you are planning a travel, you will go through different stages, and across all different stages you might have different interests and different informational needs, and you will engage with different brands, and you will do research and so on and so forth. You need to decide as a brand where you are going to be. So I think that a good exercise is just to map out those different opportunities, those topics, those touch points, and then figure out which one of them are more important, so they are bigger, and which one of them I cannot really put a lot of effort on. And then that will help you to prioritize how to really add value to that community that you want to nurture. The third point, I think, that is engaging around your passion point. So basically, now you know what your community is about because you found your purpose. Then you map out where will you engage with those people, and then you need to decide how you're going to engage with those communities. And I think that that is particularly critical when you think about passion points. You need to somehow link your brand with the passion points that people have. And you might argue, well, that's very easy for GoPro, right? Because GoPro, yeah, no matter that you are a cyclist or you like sailing or you like parachuting, then you can always film yourself and then create some very cool videos. But what about if I work in insurance? What about if I work in finance? That's a very boring topic. Well, there are communities out there anywhere. If you are an insurance company, your purpose is to protect the world when the worst happens. And that is the reason why your brand is in the world, to protect people's lives and way of lives. So if that's the case, then there might be many people engaging around how do we protect lives? What's the best way of doing this? What are the global risks that we face as a community, and so on and so forth. So I think that there is a lot of opportunity to engage around passion points. Then you need to be culturally relevant in the way that you engage around those passion points. I think that it's very easy to play it too nice and not necessarily get involved in things that might be controversial, or things that might somehow you don't feel comfortable, right? I think that you need to be culturally relevant. The example that I brought you here is how, for instance, the brand that I work for, Lego, is engaging through the community during these times of the pandemic, right? And what we are trying to provide to the community are ideas to spend time together at home. So just pick whichever bricks you have around your house, and then we will propose you new ways to engage with your kids, games that you can play with them, challenges that you can engage with to build whatever it is. And every single different day we have a different challenge, and we try to keep the spirits high on how we engage with brands. If we go to the next slides, we will see another couple of examples of that. So for instance, you see Nike, how they have adapted to the pandemic, which is play inside, play for the world. I think that is a brilliant execution on how brands can engage meaningfully and being culturally relevant. And the last example that I brought to you is one of the videos that we have produced for Easter with the UK government, where we ask children to be the heroes and stay at home so they can help to everyone, and their superpower is just to protect lives and protect the NHS. So that's definitely what being culturally relevant means in this context. Lastly, the last point I've got is that you will need to be brave when you work with communities. It's not just reaping the benefits of people talking about you. Sometimes you will face challenges. This example here is Microsoft Xbox. They created what they call the Xbox Design Labs, which basically was a way to engage with the gamers community. Gamers could create their custom controllers and they could sell them for a cut. So Microsoft will sell these custom controllers, and then the blogger or the gamer who has designed this controller will take a cut of that sale. If you go to the next slide, we will see that there was a kind of online shopping where you could buy different controllers that different people in the community have created. And then you will see, well, that's a great example of how you can co-create with your audience, right? But sometimes you need to be prepared for some uncomfortable developments, like someone might do a Trump controller, right? And that is absolutely fine. I think that people are smart enough to understand that your brand doesn't necessarily mean what the people will do with your brand, right? So takeaways: find your brand purpose, map out your ecosystem to engage with your communities, identify the passion points that you can engage with on your community is be culturally relevant and be able to commit and take risks and be brave to take your community to the next level. So that was it. Thank you very much. And I pass it over to Joe or Anton. Joe, I think you're mute.
Joe, muted.
Oops, technical issue. Thank you very much. Some great tips, and I also like your video that you did. Obviously, we couldn't play the video here, so if you're able to, if you can share it in the chat, or we can share it in the chat too.
I will, yeah.
And I'll pass over to Anton to give his introduction, and then he will give his tips. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I work for SEMrush, and webinar guy. Well, officially it's called head of video content, but mostly I concentrate on webinars, which is we are in. So we can call it webinar or can call it online live events, which is no-brainer now. Everybody does because nothing else we can do. Talking about fun facts, I just only remember one. On my webinar I arranged, we had a Google and we had some experts, and experts provoked Google, and Google, it was a slip of a tongue, but Google confirmed first on a record 3 ranking factor. It was a rank brain at that time, content and links. And it was just a webinar with Google. So I wake up next morning and thought 30,000 views on this video. Because Barry Schwartz was watching this, he made the article and he said on a minute 8, Google said it, and well, after that it was history. Okay, so we can go to the next slide, and I would rather have no slide at all if it's possible. Okay, yeah, I can't be as comprehensive as Louis. I'm just not as good. So I only have 5 minutes. Probably now I have only 3 minutes. So I would just want to consider a very, very small thing, which I personally know, because SEMrush does a lot of things for community. Just if I would rather only just go to mention it, would not have enough time. So what I will be talking about is about webinars or online events as a powerful, maybe most, well, maybe not most powerful, maybe second most powerful tool for community building. And when I'm talking about community, I always think about community double tier. The lower tier, the audience, all you guys, I hope 1,000 people watching us, and YouTube counter is just lying as usual. So and the higher tier as a Sarah, Louis, and myself, for example, people who are inside the webinar room, people, influencer, experts, brand advocates. I won't talk about the low one. Low, everyone wants to build this low one, to have million people who loves you and have a community and everything. I just don't want to do that. I want to talk about the high one, experts, and why a webinar, why online events could be extremely powerful tool to build this part of community. And I think this part of community as important as the low part. Yes, we probably won't sell anything to, we probably won't sell anything to Louis or to Sarah, but we don't want to. We don't want to. We want to convert you guys to our friend first, and after that convert our friends into our brand advocate, and eventually that you will be part of our community. Double tier community, but it's still a big community. So when we plan our webinars, actually, yeah, many things are important, but we always think about it. How, I think it's a very legitimate task aim for webinar to convert experts who are there into our friends and to please them. And you can please experts different way, but most of the things. And I'm saying it because now everyone is in the webinar, everyone doing online events. We are on a webinar right now. So how can you please, Louis? How can they please you if you're on a webinar? I probably can guess. If you have plenty of people watching you, yeah, so big audience, they can please you. And obviously, if you will have enough time to speak out. So when we direct our hosts. For example, one of the very important things we tell our hosts is make sure everyone who is on the screen will have enough time to speak up, because sometimes people are talkative, and sometimes people are slightly shy. And if you have, for example, I don't know, Sarah and Louis very talkative, and Anton Shulke is very shy, which is not the case, obviously, but very shy, I probably will be spending 60 minutes or whatever webinar goes just saying, okay, I'm on Anton Shulke, I work for SEMrush. And it's at the end of the day, I will be very unhappy because I spent 60 minutes, probably I've done some tests before, and I always said my name, which is not. So we always instruct our hosts, make sure everyone's happy. And sometimes you're watching a webinar and you see someone is not involved enough, and you type to host, yeah, get Sarah in. Make sure she asks her this question, something like that. So we sometimes, not very often, but sometimes, the main goal for webinar is to bring particular expert. It's not very often, I have to say, but sometimes it is. Sometimes we just construct webinar because with this webinar we can pull this expert, because especially if you panelists like today. Okay, Louis prepared a lot of slides, but I didn't prepare anything. So actually, for me, it's only webinar or test, maybe. So it's much easier to bring someone to webinar than, for example, to bring someone to write a blog post. Blog post will probably take 8 to 6 hours to write. Webinar is much easier. So it's much lower benchmark. So you can bring people much easier to webinar. Obviously, you have to bring audience to them and please them. And one more thing, I'm pretty sure I'm over 5 minutes. One more thing, because it's double tier community, how we look at it, we try to kind of interconnect that. So we try to sell our webinar as a live event, which is completely different from blog. You can build a great community on a blog. Mo's done it fantastically well. I'm not supposed to say Mo's on the record, but yeah. Okay, so Mo's done it very well. But for example, webinar, what is the difference? This is an event, and we try to sell it to public as a live event, because, for example, it's live event 60 minutes. What audience, besides learning our tricks and knowledge and skills and everything, what they can learn within this lifetime, what they can do? What they can do is, for example, they can ask us some relevant questions. I'm pretty sure all guys, Sarah, Louis, everyone, even sometimes I do receive cold emails. I'm pretty sure you receive zillions and zillions of cold emails, and you probably just disregard them because you don't know who they are, and they say, oh, we want to do this and this, and you just don't. Obviously, if you recognize sender, you probably will answer. So guys who are watching it, I'll give you it for free. This is extremely powerful trick. If you ask right now some very relevant question to Louis or to Sarah, you can ask even myself, but it doesn't matter. So very relevant question right now, get great answer. And after that, on the Twitter, for example, so we try to share contact details of our experts, but not email, obviously, in a live chat. So and after that, you said in a Twitter, Louis, I went to your webinar. You were great. You answered my question. And I have a follow-up question. Well, what chances that Louis will answer? Very high, I would think. This is a way to get connected to expert, to get connected to influencer. We're trying to sell this. Why we are doing it? What is for us? For us, this is interconnection of our community. So it's actually what I think. You have a group of people. What makes it community? When they're interconnected, when there is some kind of information goes around, it becomes a community. Okay, this is what I will talk about, and Joe, I'm done. You're muted.
Thank you very much. Another technical issue. We've got some questions in the waiting, which we'll post later. I'll pass over to Sarah, who will introduce herself and then talk about some tips. And hello to Rij, Azim, and Alice, Estelle, and Lawrence as well. Thank you. I'll pass over to you now.
Brilliant. Hi guys. So I don't have as many great things in my past that are digital yet, but a bit about me. I am really passionate about digital strategy and communications, and I work for a niche tech provider in the B2B space, which is called Rescom. We provide e-commerce solutions for airports, and I'm really passionate about the B2B space, especially when it comes to community. I think there is a lot to be done, and I think B2C is sort of stealing the show a bit, but we need to catch up, guys. So content marketing, SEO, and email marketing are sort of where I'm at home, and I love a good SOS tag framework. I will be referencing that. And just a bit of a fun fact, before I became digital, whatever that means, I was a youth pastor, and I spend time making coffee, and I can do pretty good latte art. So that's not it's a thing that not many people know about me. Perfect. Shall we dive into my sort of 3 main points? So for me, building community starts by looking at the good, the bad, and the ugly. So for me, a tactical approach is needed to identify where you're at, where you want to go. So thinking about SMART goals and what strategies and tactics will get you there. Gosh, can't speak today. And most importantly, how you're going to measure. And that is basically the SOS tag planning model. So my first step would be building insights. So getting to know your audiences. Anton spoke about the 2-tiered audience, and I very much agree with him. And I would actually argue that we have like micro communities within our bigger community. So if you don't know who it is you're trying to attract or who you're talking to, then you're already off to a bad start, really. So paying some time or paying some attention to what internal and external communities you have, what industry you're serving at large, and their needs and wishes are, for me, sort of the first step. So thinking about customers, we get a newish staff member, because they're not biased yet, to arrange 10 to 15-minute informal interviews with our customers, and we make sure that the questions are to the point and answers can be easily recorded, because my target audience is really time poor. They're under a lot of pressure, and they just need to deliver targets. So you can also bring in other parts of your business, like sales and service. They have got a lot of knowledge. Customer service teams, they have the same frustrations as your target audience. So in the software space, they're using your software every day. They know its shortcomings, and go and speak to them, because they hear it literally from the horse's mouth. Sales teams know what's going on in the general industry. They have a lot of contact with tons of people. Then you have the industry experts. I'm not going to really expand on that, because Anton did such a fantastic job of that, but get them involved. What is your competition doing? How are they building the audience? They have the same community potentially as you. And then internal, sending out feedback questionnaires and gamify it, and make sure that the prizes are available and that people are excited about it, because the people who are building your company are the people you really need to start with in building this community if you want to have a brand that has a purpose and is really clear about its ethos. So once you have built inside, you build out inside. So make it a team thing. It's not just digital or a business thing. So creating company-wide workshops to build up your insight and getting everybody together. It's a great opportunity to work on that, the ideation of content and strategies, and also on that teamwork feel, and bring those insight into a SWOT analysis or a similar framework. I don't want to prescribe anything, and identify trends as well as opportunities, and just get your team together and look at it and look at the feedback from your customers, and just see the good, the bad, and the ugly, and then ask the question, now that we have got this baseline, where do we start off from? And make sure that you actually make sure that you record the outcomes and ideas from those workshops. It's such a goldmine of really good content. And then my last sort of tip or step would be build iteratively. So realize that you won't build a community overnight. It's not going to happen. So you need to be realistic in what you're trying to achieve and by when. And it's good to dream big. But depending on what your analysis and your research unearthed, there might be really big building blocks in the way, and you might not be able to, get quite, far down the road and build great things, but you might be able to lay foundations. So a few quick tips would be go for the quick wins when you are at that stage. Make sure that you sort of patch up the easiest things. Ensure that you measure everything, and I mean literally everything. If measurement falls through, you're gonna really not know what you're gonna do, and you're gonna probably waste some time. And then test the ideas and prepare to fail. So we used to go to a lot of events, and we will again, but in between times it wasn't the right strategy for us. So we actually did roll out webinars, and it was really greatly received. And for me, as sort of overseeing the whole process of the creation, the ideation, and then through to follow-up blog posts and getting people involved was actually fantastic. And it's really meant that we served our community well, and we added value for them. So once you start creating the community, and whatever that means in your context, be prepared for it to be a long game. So it never ends, it just changes, and it will be different things you're focusing on, and how you need to react to difference of industry events and what's happening. So right now you have got the coronavirus crisis. I work in the airport and aviation industry, so right now there is a lot of stress on the industry, and we try and react as well as we can, and come alongside our customers and just be there right with them. Please note that you need to definitely involve your stakeholders, your in-house experts. They have so much knowledge. Don't just run off and ask, people outside of your actual internal community. Ask your internal community first, and ask them, who should we be looking at? Who should we be asking questions? Because they know the industry so well. So yeah, the tools are there as well. Just get really creative. Just because you're a B2B company does not mean that you have to be boring, and you will find lots of people who are passionate about your industry and your specific field. I think that's me done.
Thank you very much, Sarah. There's loads of great tips from 3 experts in talking about how to build up their community. We do have some questions, so Carol will take the questions and then pass it over to you guys to give your nice answers. And thanks, Anton, for already answering one of them in the chat. That's very impressive. 56,000 new registrants because of that 24-hour live.
No, we've done the question was the largest live event I was in. It's not like hosted myself. I was involved, and SEMrush hosted. Last year we had a global marketing day. Luis was there, by the way, and we had it was not on. It was online, but we still had all the speakers in studios. It still was possible last year. So we had studio in Sydney, London, New York, and San Francisco, and we transmitted for 24 hours, non-stop, 24 hours. We had 56 registrations because we do a live event with registrations. It helps to remind people that life is now. And we have 56,000 registered, 24 hours live, and many things. What impact did you see? Well, I think we already proved that we're doing a lot of online event before, but after that, we had a lot of big companies privately approaching us and say, could you tell us about how did you do that?
Good. Some nice results off the back of that. Yeah, I saw that live event. It was really good.
Great. So we have a question first for Lewis, which says, how can you build a community consistently across different ages of children and adults?
Yeah, I think that, coming down to what Sarah said, I think that we need to figure out how many micro communities you have, right? And obviously, we in Lego, we have quite a few. And if you think about it, I think that the way that you should engage with those communities is that, coming back to my framework, you need to have a purpose. That is what is common across all your communities. So, for instance, some of the values that we are part of our brand is creativity, is fun, is learning through play. And those are values that everyone, no matter how old you are, you can relate to. Everyone wants to have fun. Everyone wants to, unleash their creativity and so on. And that is what we have in common. But then you need to have hyper focus on each one of the communities. So obviously that's when I mention about the passion points. If you think about people who are the Star Wars community, the Star Wars fan is a huge community. How do we engage with them? It has to be in their own terms. It's not us as a brand, the ones that say how that community should behave. What we're trying to do is just to add genuine value to that community throughout ideas, products, whatever it content, whatever it is that we publish, right? And if you think about children, it's exactly the same. We have a mobile app that was specifically designed for kids, with all the kids safety measures that you can imagine. So it's super, super safe for kids. Parents feel confident as well. And that is how we engage with that audience. And their passion points are about the pride of creation, are about being able to do certain things. And that is what motivates them, and to share their creations and so on and so forth. So if you think about that audience and the audience that are about Star Wars, they are so different, right? But ultimately there are many commonalities. So that's basically how I will apply the framework. Purpose, then that's the commonality, and then the passion points will probably be the way that you can engage with those different micro communities in a stronger way.
That's really useful, thank you. We have a question from Sarah. In your opinion, do you think it's worth looking at similar characteristics between micro communities, possibly with a view to creating campaigns to target them?
Oh, definitely. I forgot to mention one tool, which is personas. Love a good persona. I think that is where that comes in. So once you have got, you're sort of looking at your larger community. So it will be, people in general, humans. And then you'll have, your internal and external community. So for an internal community, your micro communities, and that might look like sort of job level seniorities. And then maybe areas that they work in. So you'll have sort of digital people like marketers, and you'll have creative people, and then they have their different seniority levels. And those seniority levels will share pain points. And obviously, if you're a junior, you need to know how to fulfill your brief well. What questions do you need to ask if you've not understood something? There's lots of stuff around that, and then when you move up, there will be different sort of pain points and questions that they have in common. And I definitely think you can target them with one campaign, making sure it's a little bit personalized to each sort of area, because they are slightly different. But it is quite smart to work like that, because there is a lot of overlap. It's more of a Venn diagram than necessarily, sort of a pyramid. And you find lots of overlapping things in your internal community. And I can 9 out of 10 times, guarantee you that if you find them in your organization, you'll also find them with your clients and prospects and people in the industry, and that will give you great insight. So smart idea. I would do that. I'm writing it down now.
Great, thank you. Let me see if we have any other questions. So Anton, you were talking about the double tiers, the lower and higher tiers. People inside the webinar, and so there are people inside the webinar who are the higher tiers. Can you explain how long it took for SEMrush to build their community?
SEMrush, as I said, building community in many ways. We have a Facebook group, we have blog, and we have gamification of blog authors or commenters and everything. So it's a lot of stuff. SEMrush exists for 12 years. In terms of webinars and everything, actually, a webinar team belongs to community team, not to marketing. So the main purpose for webinars is creating a community. How long it takes? Well, we're still building it. But I mean, for example, for us, the major metric would be regulars. So regulars, people, for example, who attend webinar regularly, like once a month. We're doing plenty of webinars. We don't expect people attending every single webinar. It's possible. Only I can do it because I got paid for it. But otherwise, if someone, for example, attend our webinars regular and do it for 3 months, we put him or her in a core, and we look how this core is growing or getting smaller. It is growing. and we have like 30,000 people inside the school right now, and we're very happy about that. How long it took to get from 0 to 40,000? About a year, probably.
That's really useful, thank you. I think those are all the questions we have for today. Thank you for everyone for joining. And also to let everyone know, I just posted a blog post from last week from Azim and Justina. So if you head over to our blog, you'll see that there.
Thank you very much, Carrie. And so, as Carrie mentioned, we have a blog post recounting some of the talks for the week. Thank you very much to our speakers, Luis, Sarah, and Anton. And I forgot to mention earlier, but I hope everyone brought their tea. You can take a photo of your tea and cake and share with us on Twitter. We will be back tomorrow at 4 p.m. where we're going to be joined by Azim, who is in the audience right now. Azim, Daniel, and Luke, and they'll be talking about SEO reporting and analytics. So thank you very much, everyone, for coming today, and we will see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me.